وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله في الكتاب الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. We gather together on this blessed day of Jum'ah to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to beseech Him for His favors and for His blessings. SubhanAllah, before we get started, a quick reminder to all of us, inshallah, is make sure our cell phones are off, and inshallah we are focusing on the khutbah today. We want to start with a hadith that something we focus on often, and one of the fundamental hadith that we go over, it's called Hadith Jibreel. It's a very long hadith, if we want to get quickly through it. There's a few different riwayat, a few different narrations of it. But in this hadith, we take the narration of Umar radiallahu an, where the Umar radiallahu an says that the Sahaba were sitting with the Prophet alayhi wassalatu wassalam in the Prophet's masjid in Medina, and then someone walked in. This person had very, very white clothes and had very, very black hair, and they sat there, and this person asked the Prophet alayhi wassalatu wassalam a series of questions. And then he asked him things like, what are Islam and what are Ihsan? Right? So he asked him these things, and they thought was very interesting was when the Prophet ﷺ gave his answer, and we know as being the Prophet, there's the person we learn our religion from. This person leaned in and said, yeah, you're right, as if he is testing the Prophet ﷺ. Eventually, after the discourse and discussion was over, this person got up and left, and the Sahaba were commenting, and they said that it was interesting because we didn't know who this person was. If we don't know who it is, like Medina is a small place, if we don't know who they are, they probably had to travel to get here. But if they traveled to get here through the desert, their clothes would be not white, they'd be dusty from the desert, and their hair wouldn't be black, it would be dusty from the sand. So they said this person we didn't have any signs of travel on them, and we didn't know who they were. Eventually, when they left, the Prophet ﷺ said, go try to find them. They couldn't find them, and the Prophet ﷺ said, do you know who that was? And he says, no. The Prophet ﷺ says, that was the angel Jibreel, that was the angel Gabriel, that came in the form of a man to teach you your religion. Allahu Akbar. So one thing we want to focus on is a fundamental concept from our religion that we take from this hadith that we realize is the last thing that the Prophet ﷺ was asked about, or one of the last things he was asked about in this narration was he was asked about ihsan. Ma hada ihsan? What is ihsan? And this concept of ihsan, we want to delve a little bit deeper and let us focus on this, because this is one of those words that we hear kind of often, but we don't have a deep and sound fundamental understanding of this. So inshallah, we want to go into it, and first for us to realize that there is levels to this, right? There are levels in Islam. We look at this verse that we find in Surah Al-Hujurat, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قالت الأعراب آمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا. That when the Bedouins, when they came to the Prophet ﷺ, these Bedouins, they came and they said, Amanna, that we believe. So Allah is saying to the Prophet ﷺ, tell these people who said that they believe, say that you don't believe yet, rather say that we have submitted. For faith had not entered deep into their hearts. Allahu Akbar. So we realize that there are levels. There are Islam, there's Muslim, which is a basic level, an entry level you get in. And then you go to a higher level, you become mu'min, someone who has faith, someone who has belief. And then finally we reach the level of being the muhsin. I'm from the muhsineen. And this is what we're going to focus on today. Inshallah, what we realize is that this is something incredibly important. This idea of ihsan and this definition that the Prophet ﷺ gives us from the hadith about what is ihsan. When he answers the angel, he tells him what? He tells him that ihsan, what we usually translate in English as excellence. That excellence is what? It is worshipping as if you can see Allah. It is going through your life as if you can see God. That is the way that you comport yourself. That is the way you interact with people. You interact with others, with your family, with strangers, with Muslims, with non-Muslims, with the person who cut you off on the road, with the cashier at the grocery store. That's how you interact, as if you can see God watching you. And Prophet went on to say that, but if you can't see Allah, then know that Allah sees you. And this idea of being viewed by another person and the impact, or being viewed by Allah, that impact that viewing would have on you. SubhanAllah, we put this in a framework for us to understand. Allahu Akbar. And I think, sadly, I think a lot of us understand this framework, right? When we are on the road, I came from the valley, so I took the freeway to get here, right? And when you're coming on the freeway, how do you usually drive, right? Well, in LA, when we're driving, I was driving 0 miles at some time, just park the car, that's how bad traffic is. But usually when we're driving, what ends up happening, we say, are you driving the speed limit? And we say, flow of traffic. MashaAllah, I'm going the flow of traffic, Allahu Akbar. Whatever traffic is going, that's what I'm going at, Allahu Akbar, right? But it kind of changes when we're being viewed. The story that one of our teachers tells us, and he said that he was talking to a person who was a traffic cop, right? And he said, subhanAllah, when he was sitting in that speed trap and watching the cars as they drive by, and he said that he knew over the hill, everyone, when they're coming, they're going 80 miles an hour, 85 miles an hour. But when they come over the hill, they see his sirens, they see his car, and then they slow down. And he's watching another group, he goes, watch, they're all going to slow down. Yes, mashallah, they all slowed down. Less than 65, Allahu Akbar. But one person kept going 80, and he's like, oh man, this guy didn't see me. So he turns his lights on, pulls the guy over, and he starts and he goes, officer, I'm sorry, I know I was speeding, go ahead. And he goes, I gotta ask you, I've been sitting here for like 12 years. Every time when they come over the hill, everyone slows down. Why didn't you, did you not see me? He goes, no, I saw you. Yeah, right, it was daytime, I saw you. He goes, why didn't you slow down? And he goes, I didn't want to be a hypocrite. I didn't want to be a hypocrite. I was like, I'm going 80, I'm going to keep going 80, Allahu Akbar. He said he let the guy go, but subhanAllah, to think about this, right? That we talk about people having tawakkul Allah, having consciousness of God, and subhanAllah, we know this because people have consciousness of the police. That when you see the cop on the side of the freeway, you're going to drive a little differently. You're going to behave a little differently. You may have made certain gestures to the person driving next to you. You may have said certain words to the people driving next to you, but when you see that cop there, I'm not gonna do that. I'm the 10 and 12. It's like I'm at my driving test, the DMV again, Allahu Akbar. And this is the concept that we have of being viewed. And if we all drove as if we're being watched by the police all the time, there'd probably be less traffic, probably be less accidents. And if we lived our life as if we're being viewed by Allah, because we are being viewed by God all the time, and if we remember that, we may have a little bit better of our lives. And inshallah, this is the idea that we have, that in front of authority our actions are checked. And once we realize that we are being viewed by authority, how we will behave, subhanAllah. Inshallah, the focus of our khutbah today will be this concept of ihsan. This is something that we translate often into English as excellence, and how we will interact with this concept and what it means to us. SubhanAllah, we understand that Allah talks about ihsan multiple times in the Quran. Multiple times in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this concept, and we could sit here for hours and talk about these verses. But one of the most beautiful and impactful verses I found was in Surah Al-Yunus, that we find in the 10th chapter of the Quran, the 26th verse, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم للذين أحسنوا الحسنى والزيادة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling that the people who did ihsan, the muhsineen, these people, they will receive upon them husna, that we will give them something great, something valuable, right? And the scholars, they comment on this, and they say what? That this is Jannah, this is paradise. If you have excellence, you will give paradise. But the verse isn't done. It says what? Was ziyada, the increase. So saying what? That if you have excellence, you will get Jannah and you'll get more. So we're sitting here, we're like, dude, more than Jannah? Like, what more do you need than paradise? And the scholars, some scholars, they comment on this, and they say that the ziyada here, it refers to another. In English, we call this the beatific vision. That we know that in Jannah, the greatest thing you could do, because you could do whatever you want. You want to sit, eat all day, you can eat all day. You want to watch movies all day, you can watch movies all day. You want to sit and do nothing, you want to just have fun, you want to play basketball, whatever you want to do, you can do in Jannah. But it's the best thing is another, the beatific vision, where there is a time, a period in the week of Jannah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will gather everyone together. And then some of the scholars say that it's the time of Jum'ah in Jannah, and then He gathers you, and then He removes the hijab. He removes the barrier between Him, and you can gaze and look upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the best thing in Jannah. So he's saying what? That this highest, best echelon and level of Jannah is reserved for who? The muhsineen, the people of ihsan. So another reason we should work to have this concept, to be able to gaze upon Allah in the highest levels of Al-Jannah. And we see that ihsan is a good thing. Ihsan is a beneficial thing because Allah chooses to connect Himself with ihsan. That we know from amongst the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Muhsin. That this concept is so beloved that Allah chose to connect Himself to ihsan. And if we look at the root word of this from ihsan, hasana comes from beauty. Meaning what? That we talk about the Asma al-Husna. We know a lot of people in the community, they're named Husna, this name meaning beauty. Meaning what? Ihsan is you do things in a beautiful way. You do things in an excellent way. You go above and beyond in this connection. And what we talk about here is that we should do ihsan. Meaning what? That we are commanded, and the Prophet tells us that when we're interacting with people, all the things that we do, we should have ihsan in them. That means in the religious things that we do, yes, have ihsan. In the worldly things, yes, in those things also. When you go to work and you go to school and you're leaving the masjid and you're driving home, have ihsan in the ways, in those things that you do. They says so much so that we talk about ihsan, that in the rules of dabiha, the rules of sacrifice, when we have an animal and we're going to sacrifice them, we have to have ihsan. Then we have to make sure the blade is sharp so the animal doesn't suffer. We have to make sure that we give them water before we do the dhabiha, that we have to make sure that when we're processing the animal, we don't process it in front of other animals, because if they see the animals getting sacrificed, they'll get stressed, and we don't want to even cause them some emotional damage. Allahu Akbar. If this is the rules of ihsan that we have, dealing with an animal that we're going to be eating pretty soon, what rules of ihsan should we have with the people that we sit next to, the people that we pray next to, the people that we drive next to, the people from our family? Allahu Akbar. This is the way we should be working to have our ihsan, working to have our interaction with all the people around us. And subhanAllah, we talk that everything starts at home, right? We always think that we think globally but act locally. That's what they say, right? You think globally but you act locally. You start things at home and you work their way out. That the Prophet ﷺ said that a hadith that khayra ummatin, the Prophet said that the best amongst you are the ones that are best to their families, and I am the best to my family. So we talk about people, maybe they hang out and you see them in the masjid, mashallah, big beard, and then the huge hat, mashallah, and they're in the first row and they're praying, mashallah, great person. And when they go home, they're rude to their kids, they're rude to their wife, they're rude to their parents, they're rude to everyone. Allahu Akbar. That we understand that Islam is not a part-time job. You're Muslim all the time. And what we do in public, we have to do in private. And we have to see that we have to treat the people in private even better. Allahu Akbar. And we see this connection to ihsan, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Isra in chapter number 17, verse number 23, where He says that worship only Allah, right? The foundation, one of the foundational thing in Islam, worship only Allah, and there's an and after it. What else would you add to this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? Worship only Allah, wa bil walidaini ihsana. And to treat your parents with ihsan. To treat your parents with ihsan, that treating your parents with excellence is such a high thing that Allah chose to put it right after the verse about having tawheed, about worshipping only Allah. He could have wrote aqamatus salah. He could have said worship only Allah and establish the prayer. Worship only Allah and pay the zakah. Worship only Allah and read the Quran. Worship only Allah and do this. But He chose to say this, that the people that you love and the people, let's be honest, they annoy you the most, right? I talk about this all the time, that someone can't hurt you unless they're close to you, right? And then someone might do something on the street, and you're like, all right, whatever, it's a stranger. But when your parents do that, your parents act in a certain way, you're like, oh, this is so annoying. And they know it annoys you, and they know, and they're still going to do it, right? And even in that situation, bil walidaini ihsana. Treat your parents with not just goodness, not just okayness, with excellence. Treat them with excellence, even in that situation. Inshallah, we want to jump into this concept and understand ihsan a little bit better. We talked about the definition from the hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ told us that ihsan is to function as if you see Allah, and if you don't see Allah, it is to know that Allah sees you in all of the states. Some of the scholars, the classical commenters, they wrote in the old books of the old Arabic dictionaries defining this term in a very comprehensive way. They said that it is to do more that is required of you and to expect less that is due unto you. It is to do more than you're expected to do and to expect less than you are due. That if someone gives you your right, if someone gives you 100% of what you're owed, you're already ahead of the game. I was expecting 83%. Allahu Akbar, they gave me 100. And when you are expected to give someone 100%, you give them 110, 125. Allahu Akbar. This is our concept of ihsan. This is the way that we will interact and the way we will have an impact in our communities. That we learn that of how we will interact and how we will learn from our ihsan. The scholars, they comment that there are three particular categories that we can interact with ihsan with, and how we implement ihsan into our lives. And inshallah, before we close the khutbah, we'll understand the title we have of the khutbah today of everyday excellence. Now, if we jump into these three categories, the first category we talk about is that of ibadah, that of worship. That when a person who's being a muhsin, from the muhsineen, someone who's to be a person of excellence, and when they're interacting with the ibadah, they go above and beyond. Great example that we take from the definition the scholar gave us, that they expect less that they're owed and they give more than they're asked for. Meaning what? We know that in Islam we're required to do the salawat, the 5 daily prayers. But the muhsineen don't just pray the 5 daily prayers. They add on to that, right? They do the rawatib, that's a sunnah attached to the prayers, and they pray the other sunnah prayers, and they do the nafil prayers, and they get up in the middle of the night and they pray the tahajjud when no one is looking, and they come in the masjid and they pray tarawih, and they say, this was really nice, but there's a lot of people, and I want to have that seclusion with the entity that I love the most. So when they go home from the masjid, they pray more qiyam at home in Ramadan, because they're like, this is what I want. I want to be alone with Allah. It's nice in the masjid, mashallah, it's great with all the brothers, but I want to go home and have that extra bit, right? And then when these people, when they are fasting, they're not just fasting the days of Ramadan, but they're adding to it every month a couple days, maybe every 3 days, and every 3 days that we know the Prophet ﷺ talked about ayam abid, that the white days, that's the days of the middle of the lunar month. Allahu Akbar. I was thinking about this when I was driving here, right? People want to do this, and you can set an alarm in your phone. You can sit there and be like, okay, every 13, 14, 15 of every month I'm going to fast. But subhanAllah, what you realize is the sunnah to do it from the lunar months. When you open your iPhone, that's the Gregorian calendar. So meaning you could still do it, but what would you have to? You have to open up the Islamic calendar. Okay, so the 13th and 14th of Rajab actually fall on this days of March, right? It's going to be a little bit more. And you're going to sit there and you're like, this is annoying. I got to convert the calendar it changes every year because the lunar calendar and the Gregorian, they don't match up. So I have to, but that's the point. If you want to have the ihsan, it's going to be a little bit annoying. It's going to be a little bit tough. There's not really a shortcut. You could take a shortcut. You could pick any 3 days and Allahu Akbar, it counts. But the one who is the muhsin versus the mu'min, that's the difference. You're going to take that extra 20 minutes. You're going to sit there and calculate it out for the year, maybe in every Ramadan, maybe every January, and you set those days. Allahu Akbar. Going above and beyond. And then we talk about giving sadaqah. These are the muhsinin, are not just the ones that give zakat, but they're the ones that give charity. They do it publicly and they do it secretly, that when there's a fundraiser in the masjid, they raise their hands and they do it and they realize, Allah, I gave $10 in the masjid and I raised my hands, but my ikhlas was diminished, right? Maybe I only get 80% of sincerity because I raised my hand, so I will give another $10 secretly. Well, no one will know, and that will have 100% of ikhlas because no one will know. It's between you and me, Allah. These are the people, they go above and beyond. You're saying, Brother Syed, he just spent $20 instead of 10. Yeah, but think of the reward that he got afterwards. Think of the reward that he got. And let's be honest, $20, we live in LA, that's like half a lunch today, right? So if we think about the impact of the work that we are having, and it will echo into the future, right? You talk about investments. People are like, if you invest now, when you're 22, when you start working, and then the profits, they compound, right? Riba free, of course, and they compound. What ends up happening? You'll have $100,000, $1 million, whatever the formula calculation is. But if you wait 1 year, it starts decreasing, right? So do it now, when we're still young and have free time, and maybe we don't have a lot of money and we're giving what we can. Even if you have less money, you're giving a bigger percentage of your wealth. If you have $100 to your name and you give $10, that's a huge portion of your wealth. If you're a millionaire giving $10, it's a very small drop in the bucket for you. So inshallah, be impactful in things that we do. And we talk about, that's the first category in our ibadah. We draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and having ihsan and excellence in the worship that we do. The second thing in our mu'amalat, in our social interactions, where we're interacting with people, right? The dealings that we have with people. This is the second category that we can express excellence. We can express ihsan in them, that when we are working with people that we're going above and beyond, we're helping people out, that this guy, he never helps me out when I call him, but he called me and said, hey, I need help moving my couch, my sofa today, and I'll go and help him out. Allahu Akbar. Right? Expecting less and giving more, being excellent to all of our interactions, and you're saying, well, why am I rewarding this guy? It's like, you're not rewarding him. You're hoping that Allah rewards you. If you change your mindset, if you change the way you frame things, we can better understand that how we will have them. And of course, our interactions with ihsan, we know from the verse that we looked at earlier, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَبِالْ وَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, that when you're interacting with your parents, have ihsan. When you're interacting with your parents, don't even say the word uff to them, right? And we think about them, and sometimes we're reading this verse and we're going to a tafsir class and we're sitting there, we're like, why is that one onomatopoeia picked in the Quran? Why Allah selects this onomatopoeia to give to us? And we're sitting there, we're like, uff, we really don't think about it. And to think about that, I'm like, there could be other bad words, There's so many bad words you could use against your parents. Why is this one? It's not even a big deal, and that's the point, right? That even this thing, oof, right? I'm literally saying that word here in the masjid, on the minbar, no one, it's not a big deal, right? And we're saying that if you can't even use that word with your parents, the other crazy word that you get in trouble for saying, the ones you get canceled for saying, you can't even think about those words when you're coming to discuss with your parents. Allahu Akbar. And this is how we draw closer. So inshallah, the second point I want to talk about is our social interaction. When we're interacting with people, let us be more generous. Let us try to have the upper hand all the time, not in the sense that, I have one over at them, but that we are giving to these people, that we give to them more than they gave to us, and we expect nothing back from them, or we expect less back from them. The third area we want to talk about is what we talk about, the ultimate level of ihsan. And if you can achieve this, Allahu Akbar, I'll sit down, you can finish the khutbah, Allahu Akbar. And this is what we talk about from what the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the hadith we talked about in the beginning, which was what? That we live our life as if we see Allah. And if we can't see Allah, we know that Allah sees us. If you can have this interaction with all the things that we do, we will reach this extremely high pinnacle of Islam. And we will be talked about amongst great levels of people and great levels of entities when we realize that this concept of ihsan was discussed by the best angel that spoke to the best prophet in the best masjid, surrounded by the best sahaba. Allahu Akbar. This is how important this concept was, and it came to you and me from this narration. So let us give it a little bit of importance that it is due, and we realize that when we're dealing with ihsan, there's a group of people that we should be like. We should be like the people that are having ihsan. And ultimately, if we can't have excellence, that we work as a group that we're striving to be excellent, that we're striving to be amongst the muhsineen, right? There's some people, you see them at the park every day and they're practicing just one shot, and they're sitting there and they're never going to make the NBA, that, but they're like, I need this shot to be perfect. Why? Because they're working on having ihsan, excellence in thing that we're doing. Maybe you'll say, Brother Syed, I'm never going to pray 1,000,000 rakahs in the night. Okay. Brother, I'm never going to finish 3 khatams of Quran in one day. Okay, that's fine. Brother, I'm never going to fast 355 days of the year. That's fine. But work on it. How many days are you fasting this year? How many pages of Quran are you reading this year? How many extra prayers are you doing this year? Can you add one to them? Can you add just one increase and work your way there? SubhanAllah, one of the beautiful things I heard was they talked about increasing the Quran that you're reading, and they're like, oh, brother, I don't have time for a page. That's fine. Can you do one verse? Can you set an alarm in your phone every day at 10 o'clock where I'm laying in bed, the alarm will go off. Okay, I open my app, I go to my phone, I read one verse, that's it. Qaf, that's it. Close the phone, go to sleep. Work your way from there. Be consistent in the things that you do and see what impact that will be. These are the type of people we want to work towards. People that have ihsan in their life and they want to draw closer to you. I want to touch on a few more subjects in the second part of the khutbah. In the sitting between the two khutbah, make dua for yourself and make dua for your community. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله ولي ولكم إن الله غفور رحيم. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. We talked about the group of people you want to be like, and inshallah we try to run through the end. Don't be like this group of people, the people that Allah talks about, that on the day that after the day of judgment, when they're condemned to hell, they will say, Allah, take us out of the hellfire and send us back to the dunya, and we will be amongst the muhsineen. But at that point, it's too late. You have the chance now to live your life with ihsan, and inshallah that's something you can do. And some of the scholars, they commented and they said this is one of the most optimistic verses of the Quran that you can find is in Surah Ar-Rahman, chapter number 55, verse number 60, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells, Hal jaza'ul ahsani illa ahsan. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that if you give ihsan, you will be given back ihsan. You do ihsan, you'll get ihsan back to you, and think about that. If you try the minimum with your basic, your flawed, your problematic, your incomplete human level ihsan, Allah will reply back to you with the perfect, the immaculate, the divine ihsan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't need you to be perfect. You try your best and Allah will give you something that you could not have even imagined, inshallah. So try that. Try having the ihsan, and it's something that will help you draw closer to yourself. Inshallah, as time closes down upon us, we want to realize as we quickly go over this concept, let us work to have ihsan in our lives. Let us work at the highest level, which is to work as if we see Allah. And if we don't see Allah, let us know that Allah sees us. And that's the best thing that we can do. And one of the things that we are commenting on to do is that what helps with the ihsan is at the end of the day, when you talk to Allah, you have dua, say, Allah, I know I was there, I was alone, and the money was sitting there, and I could have taken $5 and no one would know, but I didn't do it, and I did it only for you, Allah. If it didn't make you happy, I would have taken the money and I would have bought something with it. Allah, I was driving, and then someone cut me off, and I could have said a bad word, and I was literally alone in the car, no one would have heard. But I controlled myself because I know that makes you happy, Allah. And if you didn't make you happy, I would have said all the bad words in the dictionary, but I didn't, because I know you are listening to me, Allah. Do this and it will help us come to our closer relationship with Allah and help us to delve deeper into our ihsan, having deeper levels of excellence, inshallah. And our last point I want to leave us with, you're probably wondering, this guy hasn't talked about everyday excellence yet. The title of the khutbah is Everyday Excellence. What is he getting to? So I want to touch upon this, and I want to bring it home with this hadith that we find in Sahih al-Bukhari, hadith number 6464. It's easy, 6464. In this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is telling us what? That the most beloved actions to Allah are what? The biggest ones, the flashiest ones, the most creative ones, the ones you can have an airplane right in the sky. No. It says the most beloved actions to Allah are the most consistent, even if they are small. So if you figure one thing out, if you can do one thing every day, you're like, Allah, I can't read the whole Quran every day. I don't have the time. I got kids, I got work, I got school. I can't do it. Okay, what can you do? Can you do one page? Can you do one verse? If you can set that up, and from today, right, 2025, until the day you return to Allah, you have that verse. You say, Allah, I don't have too much. I have this, and I did consistently for you. So this is an idea that we can take every night. You're like, I will do 2 rakahs of qiyam by myself alone. Well, no one will know. I'll lock the door, and people will be like, what's this guy doing in there? And you come out, and you will say, Allah, I don't have too much to show you, but every night I did 2 rakahs. Every night I did them for you, and I made sure the door was closed, and my phone was off, and people didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't tell anyone, and it was secret just between us. Allahu Akbar. So the most beloved actions to Allah are the most consistent. So let's find something that we can do consistently and think small. If you say, Brother Syed, I'm going to read the whole Quran every day consistently, mashallah, that's great. But I'll be honest, if it was me, I'd burn out like in 20 minutes. So do something you can do consistently, inshallah. We end quickly with the dua. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from your fadl, from your grace, Ya Allah, bestow upon us all the things that are good. Ya Allah, we beg you to make us amongst the muhsineen. Ya Allah, make us amongst those, the people that embody and implement excellence. Make us the people that follow the sunnah of the prophets, alayhi wassalatu wassalam. Ya Allah, raise us the highest levels of Jannah, and make us amongst the group that gaze upon the beatific vision that in Jannah, they get the best thing in Jannah. Ya Allah, allow us to be sincere to you. Ya Allah, give us everything good in this world and in the next, and protect us from the hellfire. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم آمين. أقامت الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله اللهم استووا استقيموا وتراصوا يرحمكم الله. Focus on your salah. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام را تلك آيات كتاب مبين إنا أنزلناه قرآن العربية لعلكم تعقلون نحن نقص عليكم أحسن قصص بما أوحينا إليك هذه القرآن وإن كنتم من قبله من الغافلين إذ قال يوسف لأبيه يا أبت إني أريتهم أحدا عشرا كوكبا والشمس والقمر أريتهم لي ساجدين إذ قال يا بني لا تقصص رؤياك على إخواتك فيكيدوا لك كيدا إن الشيطان لعدو مبين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.